Hi, I'm David. Growing up in the quiet suburbs wasn't as peaceful as it might seem, especially in our household. As the older sibling, you'd think I'd have some advantages, but it was my younger sister Sophie who got all the attention. Our parents Tom and Ella had this perfect image of a child in mind, and Sophie fit that mold perfectly. Sports and hanging out with friends became my escape, but Tom and Ella didn't see it that way. They pushed me hard, but only towards academics, just like they did with Sophie. Focus on your studies, David. Why can't you be more like your sister? Ella would say, her tone always tinged with disappointment. No matter how well I did on a test or project, it felt like I was walking on a never-ending tightrope. One evening I was in the living room sketching another hobby they didn't approve of when Sophie walked in, proudly showing off her latest A in mathematics. Tom quickly showered her with praise, hoping they'd notice my effort. For once I showed them my artwork. Dad, look what I drew. It's for the school's art contest. Tom barely glanced at it. That's nice, but maybe you should spend more time on your calculus homework instead of these little projects, he replied, frustrated and feeling like I was always second best. I retreated to my room, the only place where I could breathe away from the constant comparisons. It didn't help that Sophie would sneak in her snide relookis just loud enough for me to hear. Why even try, David? You'll never be good enough. I gritted my teeth, trying not to let her words get to me, but it was tough. The lack of support and constant belittlement turned home into a battleground. Every achievement Sophie made was celebrated, while mine were either overlooked or criticized. One day things escalated over something as trivial as social media. I was a sophomore, and Instagram was my escape, a place where I could share my artwork and keep up with friends. One afternoon Ella caught me laughing at a friend's post, phone in hand. Honestly, David, every time I turn around you're on that phone. It's like you're addicted, she said sharply. It's just a break, Mom. I've been studying all afternoon, I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. That's not what your teachers say. Your grades are slipping and all you care about is this social nonsense. Sophie, lurking by the doorway, smirked as Ella walked away. She stepped in, her voice dripping with false concern. You know, David, maybe if you shove a little more interest in your studies and less in your online life, Mom and Dad wouldn't be so hard on you. What do you care, Sophie? You're not the one getting lectured every day, I shot back. Just trying to help, she said sweetly, but her eyes told a different story. The next day at school things took a darker turn. I walked into a buzzing hallway, noticing how eyes darted away as I passed. Whispers filled the air, words like abuser and violent reaching my ears. Confused and rattled, I confronted my best friend Lucas. What's going on? Why is everyone looking at me like that, dude? It's all over school. They're saying you hurt Sophie, that you've been abusing her. My heart sank. What? That's insane. Who would even say something like that? She's been showing people bruises. David says you got angry. It doesn't look good, man. The accusation felt like a punch to the gut. I stormed home furious and scared and burst through the front door to find Tom and Ella waiting, their expressions grim. Your sister has made some serious allegations, David. We've seen the bruises. Care to explain? Tom's voice was cold, accusatory. That lies. I didn't touch her. You have to believe me. Believe you? Ella's voice was rising, full of disappointment. When your sister is upstairs crying, when your teachers are concerned about your behavior. The argument quickly escalated, voices raised, accusations flying. I felt trapped, cornered by their disbelief and Sophie's manipulations. The final blow came when Tom delivered the verdict. We can't have this under our roof, David. You're out. Go to your grandfather's or anywhere else just not here. Betrayed and heartbroken, I packed a small bag with shaking hands, the weight of their judgment pressing down on me as I left. The silence from Sophie confirmed her victory. Her mission was accomplished. At my grandfather's house, the door closed behind me and the weight of my old life seemed to fall away. In this comforting old home I found what I had been missing: peace and genuine support. You're always welcome here, David. This is your home now as much as it is mine. My grandfather said, his words a balm to my troubled spirit. With his encouragement I dove into my studies, something I had always been pushed to do, but this time it was different. I was doing it for myself, not to meet anyone's impossible standards. My interest in graphic design blossomed as I explored my creative talents without fear of criticism. David, this is impressive work. You have a real gift, my art teacher commented one day as she looked over my portfolio. The praise felt surreal but incredibly validating. I spent hours in the library diving into design theories and digital art techniques, surrounded by the quiet hum of fellow students. This new academic environment was invigorating, free from the oppressive judgments of my past. Hey David, want to join us for a group project? We could really use your eye for design, a classmate asked one afternoon. Sure, I'd love to help out, I replied, feeling appreciated and valued for my skills for the first time. Meanwhile, back at my old home, things were unraveling. Sophie's perfect image was cracking under the weight of her own deceptions. Through calls with mutual acquaintances, I heard snippets of the chaos. You wouldn't believe it, David. Sophie got caught lying about her grades this time. Your parents are having a hard time covering this one up. Hearing this didn't bring me joy, but it did bring a sense of justice. My struggles hadn't been in vain, and the truth about Sophie was finally coming to light. During breaks I visited local art galleries, absorbing every stroke and color, which fueled my passion even further. My grandfather always encouraged these outings. Go see the world through your art, David. It's the best education you can get, he would say, always pushing me to explore further. As I built my portfolio, my confidence grew. By the time I graduated, I had not just a degree but a burgeoning freelance career. Clients appreciated my dedication and unique style, and I began to make a name for myself in the graphic design community. David, your vision for our campaign was phenomenal. We've seen an increase in engagement thanks to your designs, a client shared during a review meeting. Hearing that, I felt a surge of pride. I had come so far from the misunderstood teenager who was forced out of his home through my art. I was making a Lucas, proving not just to my family but to myself that I was more than the labels they had placed on me. Back at my grandfather's, our simple dinners together were times of reflection and planning. His steadfast belief in my abilities had changed the trajectory of my life. You've done well, David. You've built something from nothing, and that's something no one can take away from you. As I lay down each night under a roof where I was wanted and valued, I knew that leaving my toxic past behind was the best decision I had ever made. With my grandfather's support and my own newfound strength, I was finally on the path to a future I could be proud of, crafted by my own hands. As my career as a graphic designer took off, my work started getting serious public attention. It felt great to be recognized for my talent, something I had fought hard to develop, but with success came a blast from the past I wasn't expecting. My estranged parents. One afternoon I received a call. Hey David, it's Mom and Dad. We've been seeing all the great stuff you've been doing. We're really proud of you. The words felt hollow, dripping with an insincerity that was all too familiar. Mom, what do you want? I asked, my voice steady. Bracing for the inevitable request while we were wondering if we could meet up. There's something we need to discuss with you. It's been too long, Ella replied with a faint warmth in her tone. Reluctantly I agreed to a meeting. Curious despite my better judgment, we met at a cafe, a public place where I felt I could keep the upper hand. It didn't take long for their true intentions to surface. So David, we're in a bit of a financial bind. We need some help funding renovations to the house. Tom started, not wasting any time. I'll help, but on one condition, I countered, feeling a surge of resolve. You publicly admit that Sophie lied about me, about everything that led to you kicking me out. Their expressions shifted, my requests clearly catching them off guard. You can't be serious, David. That's all in the past now. Why dredge up old pain? Ella protested. It's not just the past for me, it's every day I live with the consequences of what Sophie did and what you both allowed. Predictably they refused, unwilling to expose the family's secrets just for financial relief. The refusal stung, but it was the closure I needed. I stood up, ready to leave the past and them behind for good. Then we have nothing left to discuss, I said, walking away. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophie out of the blue. David, I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong. Please help them for me. Her words, though acknowledging her deceit, didn't erase the scars left behind. It felt too little, too late. I chose not to respond. Instead, I took a different step. I gathered evidence of her past lies and my parents' complicity and sent it to our extended family. The truth needed to come out, not for revenge, but for my own peace. The backlash against my parents was immediate. Family members who had once turned a blind eye were now forced to face the truth. Through it all, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Standing in my truth, I was finally able to move forward, no longer a prisoner of their deception. After exposing the truth about Sophie's lies and my parents' role in perpetuating them, the dynamics within our family shifted dramatically. The news sent shock waves through our extended family, with many who had initially taken their side now coming to terms with the reality of the situation. At a large family gathering, the air was thick with tension. Relatives who once whispered about me were now whispering about them. It was surreal to see the tables turn. My grandfather, ever the pillar of strength, stood by my side, his presence a comforting constant amidst the storm. You did the right thing, David. It's important that everyone knows the truth, he whispered to me as we entered the venue. His support during this time was unwin, and it gave me the strength to face the family. Throughout the evening, various family members approached me, their expressions a mix of apology and respect. I had no idea. David, I'm sorry for not believing you sooner, one of my aunts said, her eyes sincere. It was a vindication of sorts, though bittersweet. Sophie and my parents kept to themselves, their usual bravado dimmed by the collective gaze of the family. For once they were on the outside looking in, and the reality of their isolation seemed to hit hard. Sophie tried to make eye contact with me a few times, perhaps hoping for some sign of forgiveness, but I held my ground. This wasn't about revenge, it was about respect and recognition of the truth. This has been a long time coming, I confided in a cousin who'd been especially supportive. I just needed to stand up for myself, to stop the lies once and for all. As the evening drew to a close, I felt a sense of closure. I had reclaimed my narrative, and in doing so had changed the narrative of our family. It was clear that things would never be the same, but I was okay with it. I had grown through the turmoil, learned to stand firm, and most importantly, learned to trust in my own voice. Driving home with my grandfather, I looked over at him, gratitude filling my heart. Thanks for everything, Grandpa, I couldn't have done any of this without you. You're my grandson, David. I'd do it all over again if I had to, he replied, his voice steady and sure. As we drove under the Charlotte sky, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. My past, with all its pain and conflict, was finally behind me. Ahead, my future as a graphic designer and as a man who knew his worth was bright and full of promise. That wraps up David's story of resilience and redemption. Now I'd love to hear from you. Do you think David did the right thing by exposing the truth about his family, or should he have sought reconciliation for the sake of family unity? Dive into the comments and share your thoughts on handling family conflicts and seeking justice versus peace. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the story and subscribe to the channel for more tales like this. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more engaging content to you. So what's your take on David's decision? Let's discuss.